We're here on Live Impact News. Once again, I'm Vanessa Ruffes. We wanted to bring in a live interview for you right now, talking about a very important topic for our community. We have Nourish up joining us, CEO Tina Postel. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you for having me.
We wanted to bring you in because we saw primarily the summertime causing, I don't want to say it's usual challenges, because there are additional challenges going on right now that are out of the ordinary, I guess we could say. But looking ahead in the most immediate future, I saw that y'all really needed 4th of July delivery drivers. And I know this is a time of year folks like to go on vacation, so I'm assuming maybe a lot of your volunteers do that too.
Absolutely. So we are definitely not living in ordinary times, and we always need volunteers. So that's not an unusual request. But I will tell you, hunger doesn't go on vacation. And during summer months, when children particularly are out of school, they're missing out on those free breakfasts and reduced lunches that they might be accustomed to getting. And families also are struggling with added childcare costs and things of that nature. So we always see a summer spike, especially in the number of children that we're feeding, while at the same time, like you mentioned, everybody's going on vacation, right? Let's all head to the beach, or let's head to a family barbecue. And so we need volunteers to help us deliver meals, but also deliver groceries and sort and pack food in our warehouse.
Yeah, I mean, I have volunteered with your organization a few times now. So I've done the warehouse duty, and I've also done the delivery driving. And I feel like it can be intimidating if you've never done anything like this before. You're like, I don't know if I'm qualified. I don't know if how the process works. But the folks that you have kind of overseeing the training process, if you will, are really great about kind of giving the quick and dirty on, okay, this is how we sort things. This is how we pack things. This is how you're going to be driving, the groceries around to folks. And I would say being a delivery driver is very satisfying, because in some ways you actually get to meet the folks and talk with them if they want to talk with you.
You get to see the end result, right? So we get more requests for people to come in and pack and sort food in the volunteer center, but really where the rubber meets the road and the true heartstrings are pulled is if you work directly in a pantry, or if you do deliver meals or groceries, because you get to see that can of green beans that you might have donated. You get to see the user. You get to see the person's dinner table that food is going to end up on. And so we do get a lot of first-time volunteers, and I have an incredible staff team that will do as much hand-holding as possible. Feeding people is not rocket science. It's relatively easy. And like you mentioned, feeding people feels good. I mean, at the end of a 90-minute volunteer shift, you're going to go home knowing that because of you, because you showed up today, there are numerous families and homebound seniors and people in need who are going to be able to eat dinner this very evening and for the next week, because you chose to give your time. And that's a big emotional paycheck that we provide to our volunteers.
So for folks who do want to sign up, can you walk us through the sign-up process, like for someone who's brand new, who's never done this?
Brand new, I would always encourage people to check out our website. Our website is nourishup.org. We used to be Loaves and Fishes and Friendship Trays, so anybody who may not be familiar with the name change may not realize that we changed our website. So again, it's nourishup.org, and we have a tab right at the top that you can click on that lists all the different volunteer opportunities. And we didn't talk about it yet, but we have volunteer opportunities for people who are also homebound. So we have people who are answering phones from the comfort of their own home on their back porch, and they're talking to fellow neighbors in need. So there is a volunteer job for everybody, whether you want to be on the road driving, whether you want to come to our warehouse, whether you want to work in a pantry, or whether you want to volunteer from the comfort of your own couch. We have an opportunity to put you to work.
The other cool thing, too, is you actually get to meet folks from all across the area who are also coming to volunteer. And so in some situations, maybe less so if you're a delivery driver, but if you're in the warehouse, I can think of a few people who I've met and I'm like, these are really awesome people. And I'm just so grateful to be able to work side by side with these folks and get to know folks who I probably wouldn't have otherwise have gotten to meet. So that's pretty cool.
I'm so glad that you mentioned that, because oftentimes we may feel like no one feels like we do. And the cool part is that I have volunteers who are Democrats. I have volunteers who are Republicans. I have volunteers of all colors. I have volunteers from all faith backgrounds. And the cool part is that everybody that volunteers for us believes that everyone should be well fed. And so we drop some of those pretenses, and we all just get along with one another, and we have a shared mission of making sure that our neighbors in need are all well fed. And so you will meet people that you may not have normally met or hung out with because they're not in your neighborhood or your social group. So it's a great opportunity to learn about all North Carolinians and all Charlotteans.
So if I could, I wanted to go back to some of the challenges and or potential challenges that y'all are trying to look ahead to. How are we going to meet this concern? Obviously, we talked about some of the usual things, the fact that during the summer, a lot of kids aren't getting the lunches that they might be getting at school. But we also see a lot of economic, and we do see some political dialogue that could impact folks who do rely on food pantries. So I just wanted to kind of get your take on what the landscape looks like. What are some of the big issues you see coming up down the road for you, your group, and the people you serve?
Oh, that's an excellent question, and in full disclosure, it is something that we are worried about. There have been some scary headlines coming out of D.C., and we have watched critical food programs get slashed. In particular, just in the last 6 months, one of the critical food programs that faced a drastic cut was the TFAP program. Now, TFAP is an acronym that stands for the Emergency Food Assistance Program, and our local food banks that we rely on for food helped us distribute TFAP food. They had $7 million cut from their budget, and that $7 million was used to purchase things from local farmers and local vendors, things such as milk and eggs and dairy products and frozen meat and fresh produce. And I will tell you, that $7 million will be hard to make up because you can't rely on the community to come together. Even though the Charlotte community is very generous philanthropically, $7 million statewide is just a drastic gap. And that's the kind of food that really lights up our clients' faces. So, it's many churches, many pantries, it's easy to get a can of soup or a can of green beans donated. But when we were able to stock fresh cheese and eggs and milk and frozen meat and fresh produce, that's what made people's eyes light up. And so we are trying to fundraise as feverishly as possible so that we can still stock our shelves with those perishable items. When you're on a limited budget, when you are struggling to make ends meet, or maybe your rent is increased, and you're shopping the grocery store yourself, we all know you're supposed to shop the perimeter of the grocery store, right? That's where the healthy food is. Shop the outside edges. But people who are on a limited budget don't have the luxury of shopping the outside edges because perishable food doesn't last as long as the non-perishable. So they're buying the canned goods instead of the fresh, healthy produce and things like that. So we have an active fund right now to help us raise money so that we can replace some of those cuts and make sure that our pantries are stocked with fresh, healthy things in addition to the canned goods.
I did want to ask you what the food pantry dialogue is. So I'm sure you talk to other folks I don't even want to say the industry, but like in the circle of what you do, about what could be coming from One Big Beautiful Bill, because we hear SNAP coming up a lot. And while you were telling me just a few moments ago that y'all don't get SNAP funding or benefit from SNAP dollars, it kind of inadvertently would impact you in the end if there were cuts on that front.
Correct. So the bill that the Senate is currently debating and that we're told they will be voting on this week, if the bill remains as is, it includes the most drastic cuts to SNAP benefits that we've ever had as a country. And again, I'm all for budget cutting where there is, waste and excess, but I didn't think we'd ever start with people's basic food needs. And you know what? My mom, single mom back in the day, I remember her using food stamps when they were actual stamps. Now we've graduated and it's EBT cards that people have. But back when they were actual stamps, I remember standing at the checkout and watching my mom use SNAP benefits just temporarily, until we got back up on our feet. And anytime you cut a program like that, then that means that people otherwise, they either have to go without, or B, they have to phone a nonprofit like ours at Nourish Up. And sadly, I mean, our phone lines are active and busy, and we have, knock on wood, never had to turn people away because we didn't have enough food. But for every one person we feed at Nourish Up, SNAP Benefits feeds 9 others. So I don't want to pretend for a minute that, as mighty as my nonprofit is, that if we see the drastic SNAP cuts that are proposed in this bill, I am quite frankly scared that there's no way we could meet the need for all those families that would be put out without SNAP benefits.
So given your concerns, what sort of actions have you and advocates who work with you taken to try to see if you can make sure that some things are being preserved that are helping your causes?
Well, again, great question. And I will tell you, we're so busy feeding hungry people that we have never in our 50-year history really focused on advocacy. And as soon as these cuts started happening, we realized that it was our job to speak out on behalf of families who are struggling to make ends meet. Because if you think about it, a family that is struggling to put food on the table, they don't have time to be calling their lawmakers. And so that's where we can step in. You know, we have the data, we know the numbers, we know the zip codes, we know what a hungry family here in the Charlotte area looks like. And so for the first time ever, we launched a huge advocacy campaign. Also, if you go to our website, nourishup.org, there will be a header at the top of the page. We want you, as a fellow supporter, to reach out, contact your lawmakers, and let them know how important it is to feed hungry families and seniors on fixed incomes and our neighbors in need here in this community. The best thing that we can do is just speak out. Our lawmakers work on our behalf. They're representing us. So we need to make sure that they hear loud and clear what's important to us as a community. And I would hope that no matter what, food should never be a political issue. Food is a human issue. So we believe at Nourish Up that food is a basic human right, and we want everyone to be well fed. So if you agree with that, I encourage you, there's a sample email or letter template on our website. Let our lawmakers hear from you loud and clear that please do not cut critical food programs.
And we mentioned this, earlier this hour on the stream here on Live Impact News, that if folks do feel the way that you feel, and, as you were saying, you would encourage those folks to reach out, I would tell them time is potentially of the essence. You talked about, the understanding that there could be a vote in a few days on this bill. It's already passed the House. It's in the Senate now, and we know that the president has put a July 4th deadline as when he wants to see it on his desk. So there is a potential that this could go to a vote pretty quickly.
Yes, time is definitely of the essence. The coolest part is that we've had long-term volunteers that have called me or emailed me, and they said, Tina, that's the first time I've ever called a legislator, a lawmaker. And so it's that lifts my heart and fills my cup to know that they're getting involved in the process of advocacy work and speaking up for their fellow neighbors in need. So even if you've never done it before, we've made it as easy as possible. There's a link to the website where you can find out who your representatives are if you're not sure. We have 2 state senators here in the state of North Carolina. That's Senator Budd and Senator Tillis, and they welcome calls from fellow citizens of North Carolina.
I did want to ask, speaking of folks in the community stepping up if they believe in this cause, we did this week report on the Tepper Foundation making a very sizable donation to various food agencies across the Carolinas. I believe it was $10 million. And I didn't see Nourish Up on there, but you were saying this kind of impacts everyone in this circle positively.
Yes, the Tepper Foundation is they're definitely a great friend of all the state's food banks, but also nonprofits like ours. So at Nourish Up, we are not a food bank. Our region's food bank here in the Charlotte area is our great friends at Second Harvest Food Bank of Metrolina. They were certainly the beneficiary of this large Tepper gift. On any given year, 30 to 40% of the food that we distribute to our neighbors in needs comes from our great friends at Second Harvest. So food banks kind of act like the wholesaler of food. They get donated food from the food giants of the world, and they give it not to people directly, but to partner agencies like us, where we get it directly out to the people. So they kind of act as the wholesaler, we act as the retailer. So $1 million gift to Second Harvest Food Bank or $10 million to all the food banks in North and South Carolina, at the end of the day, it's a gift for them, but it will trickle down and impact us, because it means that they will be able to purchase food to share with us, and we can get it out to the people who need it. So again, a win for them is a win for us, but at the end of the day, it's really a win for all of the food insecure individuals and families here in our community.
Now, I feel like, you and I have done various interviews over the years at this point, and I feel like every time I speak with you, I can tell the passion that you have for the community members. And one of the things that I feel like I've heard from you time and time again is the fact that, while some people might feel like this doesn't apply to them, you are always really great about reminding that any one of us could be, one life event away from needing these types of services. I feel like I've heard you say something to that effect, a few times before.
Right. I mean, none of us are immune. You never know what life is going to hand you. We work with one of our second biggest referral partners is our healthcare friends at Atrium and also Novant. And the amount of individuals that face a medical crisis and then find themselves, struggling to pay bills as a result of their medical crisis. Atrium alone made 19,000 referrals for patients who were struggling to put food on their table last year. When the pandemic happened, and you might remember all the immediate layoffs that people had, we had so many donors that had been donating regularly to our organization for years. And they found themselves on the other end. And granted, they were the first to tell you they would much rather be on the end of giving than receiving, but they were so grateful that we were there. I mean, people, when they have to utilize our services for the first time, I always know when we have a first timer that comes to our food pantries, because they usually walk in, shoulders down, they're avoiding eye contact. Quite frankly, they are mortified to have to shop for food in a pantry instead of a grocery store. But the coolest transformation happens over the course of 20 minutes, where they get greeted warmly by one of my volunteers that just loves on them, treats them with dignity, reminds them that, that this can happen to any of us, puts them in a situation of no judgment, and they get to just shop the pantry. They get to push a shopping cart around, and they get to select food that they like, that they need for their cultural preferences, for their medical preferences, or just their generic food likes, or what they know how to cook. They get to wander around that pantry for 20 minutes with a volunteer, sharing stories, sharing recipes, and 20 minutes later, they're leaving with a cart full of food, shoulders high, chin up, smile on their face. Usually they're offering a big warm hug to the volunteer that helped them shop, and they walk out a different person than they walked in. And I realize that a week's worth of groceries is just a temporary fix, right? It's a hand up instead of a hand out, and it doesn't solve all their problems, but it certainly provides that relief and instant love and gratification. I mean, food is love, food is medicine. And so anybody out there, if you're having a bad day and you want to see a difference being made, come volunteer in one of my pantries. And feeding people feels good, and you will also be shocked at who's shopping in our food pantries. I think if you've never been a part of our organization, the image that we conjure in our minds when we think of a hungry person, we might envision that panhandler on the side of the street. They're everywhere, holding a cardboard sign, "We'll work for food." That is not who we typically see shopping for food in our pantries. And I think that people are shocked when they see, hardworking families. I mean, most of the people that we serve are gainfully employed. They're just not making enough, to cover ends meet, or a rent increase, or a car breaking down, or a medical bill. I mean, so like you said, that was a really long answer to your question, but like you said, none of us are immune from potentially needing a hand up at some point in our lives.
I mean, a long answer, but one well worth listening to all of, because it's illuminating, and I think, people need to hear this, just in the sense of the impacts, the folks it's helping, who are our neighbors in need, and what are we going to do to help if we can help, and in the case, if one of us does need the services, we know y'all are going to be there too, so.
Well, that's my goal. I mean, we have drivers who have lived in Charlotte their whole life. They come and do a Meals on Wheels delivery route, or they deliver grocery, home delivery, and they will say to me, well, Tina, I didn't even know that street existed. I mean, you can be from here, and if you only live in your neighborhood and you only go to your local grocery store, there are parts of town that you may never have seen. And so get out of your regular circle, get out of your regular path, and come meet your other fellow neighbors in a neighborhood nearby. And it's eye-opening.
Oh, well, I so enjoyed this conversation. I thank you so much for coming in. Is there anything you want to leave our viewers with here before we wrap things up?
Well, I think we talked a lot today about all the ways that people can help through advocacy, through volunteering, and through donating. But I never like to leave a conversation without saying, if you yourself, if any of the viewers who are watching and listening to me today, if this strikes a chord with you and you need to be on the receiving end of some assistance, we've been feeding people for 50 years and we're not going to stop. Swallow your pride. There's no shame in asking for help. Help is just a phone call away. Our main line is 704-523-4333. And we have a program, whether it's meals or whether it's groceries or whether it's a combination of the two. We have services that can help you. I do not want anyone in our community going to bed hungry.
Thank you for reminding us of that. Tina Postel, thank you again for joining us. Nourish Up is the program. The website is nourishup.org. And keep us posted. Keep us posted on what your needs are, how we can help. And thank you again for coming here on Live Impact News.
Thank you, and thanks for volunteering.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. I will certainly be signing up again soon.